In the early 1800s, the white man started moving into and exploring the far west. Many explorers came to these unknown territories. Some came looking for adventure, others in search of furs. Many were under contract with fur companies already established in the East. Some went alone trying to make their fortunes. All were aware of the unknown dangers of this new land. However, they were courageous people that enjoyed the challenge. Most of them came west in small groups. On the other hand, some did prefer to travel alone, looking for friendly Indians that were willing to exchange fur for other goods. The Indians who were not that friendly kept these adventurers on the alert. The most dangerous time for these explorers was during the hunt. The sound of their rifles could alert hostile tribes to their location. This situation cost more than one brave man his life. The most famous explorers were Lewis and Clark. For many years, one of their hunters and scouts was John Coulter. One day, John decided to leave the expedition and travel on his own. In 1807, he became the first white man to discover the Grand Teton Range in the beautiful valley that is now Jackson Hole. In his journal, John Coulter wrote about the abundance of wildlife in the valley. One of the most plentiful was the mule deer. He saw thousands. For the next half of the century, wildlife remained the only year-round resident of Jackson Hole. The severe winters with their annual snowfall of over 350 inches was the main reason the human population was kept to a minimum while the wildlife thrived. Today, the mule deer population is easily viewed in the winter. Some life and death struggles take place. However, the one you are watching is mostly just for bragging rights. The real threat to life is the lack of food. In fact, the feeding of these animals has been undertaken by many valley residents. This voluntary effort is taken on with little or no outside funding, simply out of the goodness of these caring people's hearts. Since the snow can be found on the ground from late October until early May, this job takes enormous dedication. The large quantities of snow help to concentrate the mountain sheep population in easy-to-view areas. Rams, which generally roam apart from the ewes, are drawn to the herd by the female's scent. The biological stimulation is irresistible. Even immature rams become stimulated, but they cannot compete with the older males. After the older rams mate, they leave the herd and go into the mountains. The moose is the largest member of the deer family. It can weigh over 1,000 pounds. Being the most prominent member of Jackson Hole's fauna, they can be seen throughout the valley. This moose has lost his rack. However, he will grow a larger one next year if he survives the winter. More than 30 moose per square mile may winter where the willows are most plentiful. Even though moose tend to be solitary animals, the search for food often brings them together. Winter finds many more moose in Jackson Hole than does the summer. As the harsh winter drags on, the moose move down from the higher elevations to the valley floor. It is not unusual to find several within the town limits of Jackson. Jackson Hole is one of the few remaining winter habitats for the trumpeter swan. This beautiful bird is currently declining in number due to constant human pressure. The National Elk Refuge is the ideal sanctuary for this endangered species. Here on 23,000 acres of federal land, the elk, or wapiti, find food provided by the government and escape some of the difficulties of winter. This coyote is also trying to survive the winter. He's come down from the surrounding mountains in search of sick or dying animals. This trip was not particularly successful. However, he will continue trying until the harsh winter winds turn to spring breezes and other food sources become available. This old picture of Jackson Hole was taken in 1907. Positioning the camera in approximately the same location, you see Jackson Hole as it is today. Jackson is located in the northwest corner of Wyoming. While the population has grown to about 4,700 year-round residents, the town continues to retain many of the West's early frontier features. Here is found a flavor of the real Old West, which is rarely discovered in America today. The town offers everything from old boardwalks and saloons to fine restaurants and art galleries. Jackson has the advantages of a big city without losing the peacefulness of a small town. During some parts of the year, the town remains quiet and its inhabitants live a very relaxed life. Valley, consisting of Wilson, Kelly, Moose, Moran, and Teton Village, got its name from the mountain men, who used the term hole for a valley surrounded by mountains. This particular valley was the favorite hunting ground for Davy Jackson. His friend Bill Sublett called this area Jackson's Hole. Later, the name was changed to Jackson Hole. The town, however, is referred to as Jackson. In summer, the town explodes with activity which begins with a celebration of Old West Days on Memorial Day weekend. During this time, the Valley residents turned back their clocks 100 years to recall the rich heritage of Jackson Hole. Music, good food, and a whirlwind of activities highlight these busy days. One of the most colorful attractions is the Old West Days Parade on Town Square. Throughout the weekend, the activities are moved between the town of Jackson and Teton Village, which is located 12 miles to the northwest. This famous ski area becomes a summer home for the Trappers Rendezvous. Here they meet annually to demonstrate their abilities with the flintlock rifle and tomahawk. They also find time to display much of their handiwork. Joining in the festivities, Native American Indians add their own unique traditions to this weekend of fun. The shootout is not just an annual event. These desperados get together and mix it up 5 to 6 times a week, right in the middle of the town square. No wonder this place is known as the last and the best of the Old West. Real estate people of today call this a home with a view. These cabins in Grand Teton National Park enjoy one of the most spectacular mountain ranges of North America. The magnificent spires of Tewanat Mountain, the Grand Teton, and Mount Owen form the Cathedral Group. The Grand Teton, situated in the middle of the Cathedral grouping, rises 13,770 feet above sea level. It is the highest in the range. Maybe it's the cool, crisp air, maybe the beautiful, clear blue skies, or maybe it's just the fact that there are a lot of things to do around Jackson Hole. No one really knows the answer, but the fact remains that people certainly like to get out and take advantage of all there is to see and do in the mountains and valleys around Jackson. Activities range from mountain climbing to sightseeing. Jackson Hole is one of the few places left where you can still observe wildlife in its natural habitat. This is a paradise for your senses. Just take a hike or a float to enjoy the beauty of Jackson Hole. It's everywhere. You can experience Jackson Hole country by water, land, or air. Trout fishing is enjoyed by anglers from all over the world. Water sports include whitewater and scenic float trips, as well as kayaking down the notorious Snake River. Drive north from Jackson Hole lies Yellowstone National Park. Millions of visitors enjoy this country's first and foremost national park. Hundreds of hot springs exist among the thermal basins. Geysers hurl thousands of gallons of boiling water into the air at regular intervals. Many species of large mammals, including elk and bison, can be viewed from the roadside and boardwalks. Two contrasting elements, heat and water, have combined to produce this land of natural wonders. The park was born out of the turmoil of thundering volcanoes and sculptured by glacial ice and running water. Mountain men, trappers, and Indians were only able to enjoy the valley during the warmer months. However, winter in Jackson Hole is perhaps the most spectacular season of the year. Winter is a great time to sit back and reflect upon the hardships of the past while increasing our appreciation for some of our modern-day conveniences that allow us to live in this extreme climate. The temperature has been recorded as low as 63 degrees below zero. After living through a winter so harsh, you can understand why it took years to fully inhabit the valley year-round. Winter also makes you appreciate the natural adaptations of the wildlife which inhabit Jackson Hole. After all, we have wood-burning stoves and down comforters to keep us warm. Of course, there are plenty of winter activities from snowmobiling and skiing to riding in dog sleds and horse-drawn sleighs. Winter can be a relaxing time when you can watch the wildlife up close or just sit back and enjoy the changing scenery after each snowfall. We hope you have enjoyed your visit to Jackson Hole and will return to become refreshed and renewed with the joy of the world in which we live. please take pleasure with us in this celebration of life, which is the true treasure that Jackson Hole can bring.